Was at worst an unintentional mistake made while trying to exercise their civic duty in this country. So we are the number 3 country in the world in terms of population. And we are also very highly ranked with the number of people incarcerated. In fact, we are actually number 1 in incarceration. That's people in prison, because we have almost 1.8 million people in prison. Now, they have different rankings. That doesn't rank you number 1 in other categories associated with putting people in prison, because our incarceration rate is only the 6th globally. Even though we have the most people in prison, with relation to our population, we're only 6th. And the number of people that we have in prison accounts for 25% of the world's total prison population. So think about that. Think about that when you look at 192 different countries in our ranking like that. So we have 531 people in prison per 100,000 people who live in this country. Now that's an astounding number, and it causes many challenges because you have dehumanization and you have a strain on state budgets. And you have the potential negative impacts of marginalized communities, whatever the hell that means. But it's a terrible situation that we, a supposedly great nation, have so many people incarcerated. And because of these volumes, there are many people who get off scot-free because there's no place to put them. So we have people who should be in jail who are not even in there. And then we have people who have court cases that take 2 or 3 years before they appear before the judge to decide what's going to happen for their illegal deeds. And then there are many, many people who have gone to court 5 or 6 or 7 times and been fined a little bit for their illegal deeds. But they have not served any prison time. But this story I am about to tell you is a little bit different than most of the stories associated with those who have served prison time or are awaiting trial, which will eventually possibly put them in prison. And I want to tell you this little story here about a young lady that was incarcerated for fraud, but she was released from prison and had done her time and was attempting now to be a model citizen. And one of the things that she did as being a model citizen is she went to vote, but she wasn't allowed to vote because she had been incarcerated. So let me tell you what happened. This happened in Texas. So that will put a different picture on it in my mind. This woman, a Texas mother, was sentenced to 5 years in prison for voting illegally in the 2016 election. And now she is overjoyed after her conviction was reversed on Thursday by the Texas Second Court of Appeals. This is a woman whose name is Crystal Mason, and she's a black mother of 3, and she was on supervised release after serving time for tax fraud. And then she filled out a provisional ballot in the 2016 election, and she said she did not know her status as a felon on release made her ineligible to vote. But she was ineligible to vote. And there are many places in this country where if you serve time, you can't vote. And I don't know what the laws are in every different state. It may be that you can't vote for for a year or two until you prove that you are an upstanding citizen again, or else you have your voting rights taken away for life because you served some prison time. I don't know what the rules are 100% in Texas, but after considering her case, as it was remanded to the court, they decided that the evidence to support her conviction for illegal voting under the Texas election law was not enough to send her back to jail. And so he reversed the trial court judgment and gave a judgment rendering her acquittal. That's what the court said in its opinion. They didn't have enough evidence. She wasn't doing this on purpose to vote illegally. Now, I wonder how many people in this country who have been incarcerated for one reason or another have still voted and nobody caught them. How come this woman was caught? Now, she was caught in 2016, but she didn't go to trial till 2019, and she has now been fighting for 5 years since 2019 to get that conviction reversed. That's a hell of a long time, don't you think? It's indicative of what goes on in our court system around this country. If people are convicted or people go to trial and it takes years and years before there's a real decision made, that's a disgrace. Does that tell us how many people in this country we have leaning towards illegal activities? Yes, and we know that based upon the prison numbers that I presented before I started talking about this woman's case. And not only was she convicted, but when they made comparisons between her conviction and evidence of white people in the state of Texas who were convicted of the same thing, they found that she was severely punished compared to the white people who had voted illegally. So not only is this a piss-poor case on general grounds, it's a clear display of racial discrimination in the state of Texas. The American Civil Liberties Union, which helped represent Mason, called the decision a victory. So even though she had received documents that told her what the rules were, the court ruled that nobody should face conviction or prison time for what was at worst an unintentional mistake made while trying to exercise their civic duty. So she wanted to vote, and she misunderstood all the documents that she received, or she ignored them, or she never got them, and so in the end, her conviction was reversed. And it probably should have been reversed just on the basis of the discriminatory actions taken by the Texas judicial system. So I'll leave you with that this morning. A good story that could have been a disaster. Have a great day. Bye.